Hello, and welcome to another episode of Transylvaniacs, a podcast where two friends try to watch every Dracula adaptation as inhumanly possible.
Each episode we try and watch every Dracula movie from Dracula A to Dracula Z.
And here we are, first episode of 2025. And we have been fed well this holiday season. Will, would you agree?
We really have. We have been feasting here in Dracula
Feasting,
Land.
Truly. How was your holiday and all that, my friend?
Oh my god, my holiday was pretty great. It's always a big celebration for my family for Christmas. We had a bunch of people over. We went to DC for a little bit between Christmas and New Year's. I got to go see the original Cookie Monster at a museum.
Oh my god!
Absolutely delighted by that.
That's amazing. I feel like that's extremely your niche.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. It was like, honestly, God, that whole exhibit was my niche because it was like in the same room they had like the original Cookie Monster, Kermit and Miss Piggy, John Coltrane's sax, Eddie Van Halen's guitar, and Prince's guitar. And so this is so specifically made for me.
Yeah, that was made for you in a laboratory. That's amazing. No, that's lovely. I was in upstate New York where it was like beautiful and snowy for half of it, and then like horrible dog shit rain for the other half.
Oh no!
Oh, it's all good. And then it was gonna snow again, so I wound up leaving like a day early, which is fine. It spared me being, stuck in like the Detroit airport or some shit. There are no direct flights to Pittsburgh from anywhere. So you wind up going through either Washington, Atlanta, or Detroit for everything, and I would pick Detroit every time out of those three.
That seems that makes the most sense, honestly.
Yeah. I avoid DC at all costs, and the Atlanta airport is just like really big, and I don't want to do it.
Nah, Detroit. It's your only option.
Yes, tourism. Do you remember a million years ago, like maybe 2010, the fake tourism video for Cleveland that went viral?
Yes. Oh my god, absolutely.
Come and look at both of our buildings. I think about that a lot. But anyway, as mentioned, we are feasting. We are feasting because we are here to talk about the brand spanking new, released, let's see, like a week and a half ago? 2.5 weeks ago? Not very long ago. Yeah, a week and a half ago. Robert Eggers' Nosferatu. And boy, oh boy, is this going to be a chatty one. Do you agree?
Oh my god, I am so excited. I have been, for context, I saw this the day after Christmas.
Hell yeah.
Us and I go with a couple buddies to see it, and I've just been stewing in this movie ever since, and just like, I think I've purposefully just not really given you any of my thoughts on this because I just wanted to be like raring to go when we eventually recorded. And
I saw this last night at a 7:30 showing by myself. And I bought a ticket online, and they like assign you a seat, but somebody was in it, so I just went up to the top section, which is definitely for like AMC club members or something, where the seats were like way bigger, and I probably shouldn't have been up there, but I did it anyway, and I had a great time. So usually, if for some bizarre reason this is your first time hearing this show, first of all, welcome, hello. My name is Colleen. I, until roughly 2 weeks ago, was one of the editors for the satire site The Hard Times. I am not doing that anymore just because it was a lot of work. I am still writing occasionally, but that's me. Will, who are you?
Oh, my name is Will. I am a art weirdo in Philadelphia. I also review potato chips on the internet.
I love that very much for you. But yes, usually this is a somewhat structured podcast. We like to look at, obviously, Dracula adaptation. We compare it to the novel. We talk about key differences. We review the film as a whole. We look into the production history. We look at some, contemporary and reviews at the time. We do a lot of that. This one I'll try to keep on the rails a little bit, but I am going to warn you, this is going to be a gab fest, okay? Like, this is Yap Central Station. Uh, so just be prepared. If you don't like rambling, we will do our best. But this is fresh, this is sexy, this is relevant. And if there's something that Will and I are good at, it is fucking yapping. So,
Yep.
Oh man. Okay, so let's do our usual starting stuff. Will, if you could review for us the cast and crew, and then give us a little bit of the production background for this film, if you would not mind.
Okay. All right, our cast for this one, we have got as Thomas Hutter, who is the Harker equivalent in Nosferatu, is Nicholas Hoult, who's really just, the last 2 years, has been, like, doing the rounds of Dracula movies.
Yes, and I will say this again, but he is the new Justin Long, IMO.
Yes, no, 100%. He is our scream queen.
And we love him for it.
As Ellen Hutter, our Mina, we have got Lily Rose Depp. As Frederick Harding, who is like, you know, he's a ship man. Let that be clear. He's a ship man.
He's a shipman.
We have Aaron Taylor Johnson playing his wife. Anna is Emma Corrin. Dr. Sievers, who's sort of our Seward character, is Ralph Ineson. Willem Dafoe is playing Professor Albin Eberhard von Franz, who is the Van Helsing in this movie. Knock, who is sort of this movie's version of Renfield, is like the little squirrely dude who just kind of bugs out, is Simon McBurney. And then, as our Count Orlok for this, we have got Bill Skarsgård.
First of all, stacked. Super fucking stacked cast. I love Willem Dafoe a lot. In everything he touches, he's good. I've never seen him.
I have gotten a lot of Willem Dafoe texts from you in the last week.
Okay. I don't know what's wrong with me. Just as a general statement. But I don't know what's wrong with me specifically right now because I'm like weirdly horny for Willem Dafoe. And I don't know if it is hormonal, if it is the fact that I turned 32, if it's that I have some sort of brain damage. Perhaps all three. But
not that
anyway.
you want an antidote for it, but like just rewatch Wild at Heart again and like.
Oh yeah. You're right. It's the
they'll temper it.
Yeah, his most viscerally upsetting role, which is saying something. Anyway, Willem Dafoe, amazing. I don't know Aaron Taylor Johnson from a lot, but he does look familiar to me. What is he in?
I think he got his start in Kick-Ass in like 2009, 2010. That was like his big, I think that was like his big role. He was in the MCU. He played Quicksilver for a hot minute in Avengers Age of Ultron. He was John Lennon in a like young John Lennon biopic many years ago.
Interesting.
And most recently, and maybe infamously, he's also played Kraven the Hunter in Kraven the Hunter, the movie about the Spider-Man villain that doesn't have Spider-Man in it. Right.
Okay, that's odd. Anyway, Nicholas Hoult obviously has done a lot of horror. A lot of people know him from iZombie. Nope, the other one, Warm Bodies. And most recently, I think a lot of people recognize him from Renfield, which we also covered on this podcast right when that movie dropped, which was, I think, at this point, like maybe a year and a half ago, which is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then if you were looking at the Dr. Sievers character and you're like, why does this guy sound familiar? He is the dad in The Witch, if you have seen that Eggers movie. He has a very distinct voice. So if I'm correct about that, I might be actually totally making that up. I'm right about that.
Nope, that is absolutely him. He's one of Eggers' like go-to guys. He's one of those guys that like he's distinctive because he's got like his face distinctly looks like it should be in like an illuminated manuscript from the 12th century.
Yes, ancient ass looking motherfucker. I appreciate it though. There are some people who are just not of this time, and he is one of them. Okay, and then a little bit about the production background. I think some of the stuff that people are talking a lot about right now is that there was some recasting done in this.
I think so. Do you have more to... Was Anya Taylor-Joy supposed to be in this? I feel like
Yes,
she
she
was
was.
supposed to at some point.
Yeah, so she was originally cast as Ellen, or at least offered the role, which I think is also not surprising. She, got her career break in The Witch. And then, weirdly enough, and this is baffling to me, is that Harry Styles was offered the role of Thomas, which is baffling.
Okay.
Baffling. I've never seen a Harry Styles act in anything. I can't, speak to whether he's talented or not. I just think that's weird. Does that seem weird to you?
I feel like this is why... It does. I feel like that is a question that is probably better asked of our occasional correspondent, Nina Hyland.
Yes, our One Direction expert, Nina Hyland. We'll be frantically texting her shortly. But yes, that is kind of the recast there. And Bill Skarsgård, obviously, I think has gotten a reputation as doing horror villains specifically. He's kind of turning into this generation's Doug Jones, which I do super respect. Lots of weird physical horror, lots of
a lot of makeup, a lot of prosthetics.
Yes, he's doing kooky stuff. But we will obviously get into everybody's performances later. But if you had anything extra you wanted to chat about the production history, please feel free to go ahead.
I mean, I did not really do any research this. I'm coming in hot with this one. I do know this one was sort of, this movie was a dream project for Eggers. I think I remember hearing him first talk about wanting to do this probably shortly after The Witch came out, and that was probably 2016. So
yeah, just about.
He has talked about doing this for a pretty long time. I think it was on track for a while, and then I think maybe around... I probably have some of this wrong. I think around The Northman, his last feature, it maybe underperformed at first, and then sort of it put this project into jeopardy, and then I think maybe that one gained some steam and got a little more accolades, and I think there was a reversal of fortunes, and he got the green light to go ahead and make this. So this has been sort of a long road to the screen, but he made it, which is, I think pretty great. It's nice. I like when you get to see a director actually bring their passion project to the screen. Pour one out for Del Toro's At the Mountains of Madness. That
I think about that all the time.
We're not going to see.
Rip. Yeah, and then just to very briefly, a lot of the principal photography for this was in the Czech Republic, which makes sense when you see this. This definitely just reeks of Eastern Europe, and I say that if you take that out of context, it sounds like I'm being super racist. I think that's probably the fourth time in this show I've been questionably racist towards Eastern European people. But yeah, a lot of this in some exterior shots in Romania, but a ton of stuff in actual ruins. And that makes sense when you see it. And then just a quickie fun fact, apparently Skarsgård's prosthetics took 6 hours a day to have put on, which I feel like is half of your working day. So that's a lot.
I really respect these dudes who do these monster movies, because that seems like par for the course, is just sitting still for 6 hours. I couldn't do it.
No, I don't get it. And I think that if that's, part of your work, you kind of enter some sort of meditative zone. But certainly not me. I have to pee every 90 minutes, no matter what. Thank you very much.
Yes. Tiny Bladder Gang.
Woohoo. But yeah, okay. So again, I said I would try to keep this on track, but it's Gavin time. Will, one sentence top level review, you go first.
Oh, can I make up a word?
Yes.
Okay, I think if I was gonna come up with a word, it'd be gothic corny.
Yes. Yeah, GOTHICHORNY.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes exact sense to me. Mine was gonna be excellent, comma, a few flaws.
Yeah, I think that is good. I think it is that is a good descriptor. I think it's a movie that I will say within the first half an hour, I was not sure how the ride was going to go, and then as it went on, I was kind of in it.
Kind of in it, yeah. So if you are listening to this to see if you want to watch this movie or not, I would say don't, and just instead, don't listen to this to watch the movie. Just go watch the movie and then decide whether you liked it.
Come hang out with us after you've seen it.
This is, in my opinion, the most accessible Eggers film. I have not seen The Northman, but The Witch is a slow burn. It's pretty long. It's got some really good scares that are due to like this building kind of hysteria and tension, which is what I think Eggers does best. But it's in a very, very like historically accurate, almost indecipherable English dialect, which is hard to deal with, especially without subtitles. And it's slow. So I think that turns some people off. Like, not a lot happens in The Witch until the last 20 minutes of the movie. The Lighthouse is a two-hander, so you've got two fucking dudes, Defoe and Pattinson, both of who also have heavy accents. Pattinson has a kind of like old-timey Boston situation, which I personally loved. And then Defoe has an old seafaring, some sort of British dialect. Also hard to understand. Also not a lot happens until the end of the film. But this to me felt strangely mainstream. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and I mean, I think I did see The Northman, and The Northman feels like the bridge between his kind of more esoteric movies and something like this, because The Northman is a movie that is also, it's got a little bit of a dialect. It is, an R-rated kind of brutal movie. It is sort of like the original legend of Hamlet.
Interesting. Okay.
But it is also a movie that has like a magic sword and ends with a sword fight in a volcano.
Okay, that actually sold me weirdly.
That one splits the difference, and I think this one is, this is him like fully announcing himself as doing like a blockbuster movie for like a mass audience, which seems odd for like a hard R gothic horror movie, but
yes.
Yeah, I think it's true. This is like mass. This is like the first like mass culture Eggers.
And honestly, I'm completely okay with that. I think it was a good choice to kind of go almost like Royal Shakespeare Company with it, as opposed to this really slow, sparse filmmaking. This felt like Dracula X A Christmas Carol.
Yes.
In a weird way. I was not expecting it to be as lively as it was. Like, I thought this was going to be, similar to his other films where it's a very limited cast. There's not a lot of... You don't really get the sense that his films are populated, if that makes sense. But I was not expecting this to have such a mainstream production value to it. And I think that was honestly a really good choice for something that was billed as like the big Christmas blockbuster. And I think that is to thank for some of its success and mainstream appeal. And, people like to bitch about, selling out or whatever, but like, I honestly think that was a great choice for this particular film.
Yeah, I feel like particularly if you're going to reimagine this story, because I think sparsely populated, esoteric, slow burn version of Nosferatu as a remake has already been done about as perfectly as it can be, so you have to kind of go in a different direction.
Yes, and like, if you are not familiar with the kind of ladder of source material here, we have the 1897 novel by Bram Stoker, Dracula. We have the 1922 original silent film Nosferatu, which was an borderline illegal copyright infringement version of Dracula, in which they changed the characters' names, and Murnau just said, fuck it, we ball. The film was almost destroyed as a result. But that is, kind of the first true adaptation of Dracula that we have access to, 1922. After that, we have 1979 Werner Herzog adaptation, which is what Will is talking about, And that if you want a sparse, esoteric, weird take, that is exactly what that was. So it makes sense to me that he would try to do something different than both of them. You've got a 70-minute silent movie, 80-minute silent movie, and then a German art film. I think it is fun to revisit the source material from a different lens, and I think he's the right director to do it, but also he took a different direction for himself, and those were both good choices.
Yes. I think and we'll talk about it as we go on, I think what is interesting in this is how it is true to the spirit of specifically Nosferatu and how that exists as sort of a different strain is over the course of 3 movies is, about different things and has a different focus than what Dracula is about in our culture.
100%. Yeah. So if you are, again, kind of looking for some more info, this is probably our 4th Nosferatu episode at this point, because we've done the 22, the 79, and then our last episode was called Shadow of the Vampire. So comically, we actually were going to watch another version of Nosferatu that just came out, starring Doug Jones. That was a Kickstarter movie from about a decade ago that just launched. And we did not wind up finishing it because Will took a bullet for us, and it was bad and not in a fun way.
It did not seem it didn't seem like a fair thing to go into, particularly in the lead up to this like mega budget blockbuster version of Nosferatu.
Yeah.
So this might be one that like I don't want to like punch down at anyone, especially.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, this might be one that we might do as, like, a bonus episode down the line after a couple drinks, but, let us know if you'd be interested in that.
But now is not the time. Not the time. Mm-hmm. It was too much. But anyway, what we've discussed in the past with our Nosferatu episodes is that there are a few key differences between the novel and the first film, primarily in how the character of Ellen is handled. So Ellen is the analog to Mina Harker. In Nosferatu, which again came out in 1922, she is transformed to kind of the protagonist of the film, where Count Orlok has this draw to her, and most notably, she dies at the end of the film. Mina does not die at the end of the novel, but she sacrifices herself to save the town from the plague, which is something that is going to be heavily, heavily leaned on in this particular adaptation. And I kind of lost my train of thought there, but that's the main one. Nosferatu is also the first time that you see Dracula being weak to sunlight. So that's kind of fun because that's just become the cultural zeitgeist for that. But that actually was not in the novel that came about in that particular film. So that's like the barest background for you there. It does follow the story beats of the 1922 film pretty accurately. Something that is interesting is that the 1922 film is an hour and change. This is 2 hours and 10 minutes. There were some things that were added. How did you feel about the runtime? Do you think it was overbloated? Like, what's your take there?
I do think this is a movie that probably could have been trimmed down a little bit. It feels like it's it's got weight. It adds a lot in, but I do feel like there's probably a little flab on it.
Yeah, I wanted this to be an hour 45, which is cutting a lot. But some of it is Eggers' style, is that, like, the man moves slow. And I think that gravitas behind the camera does work, but it was a bit long. I think one of the notable things, there are kind of 2 notable things that changed, and correct me if I'm missing any of them. One, in this version, Orlok was actually summoned by Ellen when she was younger, and him coming to her again later in her life is, her, quote, repledging her pact. So that fundamentally changes the lens with which we view the main character. And he's got this kind of Christmas Carol-y 3 nights thing where he's like, if you don't, pledge to me again by the 3rd night, your husband's toast. And then there were some scenes added with Friedrich and Anna, who are Holmwood and Lucy analogs. There were some scenes added with them. They've got a family in this version. The There was one particular scene added with them, which we'll address later.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what did you think? Let's cut right to the chase. What did you think about the decision to have Ellen be the one who, has been a young person who has been in touch with the occult? She discusses having visions, having some sort of, ability to see the future, even things as small as Christmas gifts. And as a result was extremely lonely and vulnerable and, prayed for some sort of entity, angel, demon, spirit, anything to comfort her in her time of need. And that is what summoned Orlok in the first place. That's the opening scene of the movie. What did you think of that?
It's one of those things where I had to go along with the whole ride to see how it would pan out. I think for the story it's trying to tell and what it is saying about Ellen, and then what the themes that it wants to explore and the themes that Eggers, I think, is interested in as a filmmaker, I think it made a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't mind it. I thought it was an interesting look at the character. Something that I have seen people talk about with this film is that it is a film about childhood sexual abuse. I think that is an accurate and valid read, but I don't think that it's a film about that, if that makes sense. I don't think that's the point of the movie. I think that that's a valid way to read some of the central metaphors, but I don't think that's what the movie's about.
No, I don't think it is.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And I think if you're sensitive to that topic, particularly sensitive, it might not be for you, but I think they do keep it pretty ambiguous regarding her age and the decision to just have Lily Rose Depp play past Ellen. If it was literally a child, it would be different, but it's not. You know what I mean? It is unclear what age she was. And it's tricky because, again, being faithful to the source material, Ellen does die at the end of the film after willingly sacrificing herself to Orlok in order to save the town from the plague. That is exactly what happens in the 22 version. It is exactly what happens in the 79 version. And the 79 version does make that last scene very sexual. So this is kind of a logical conclusion of the adaptation arc that we're seeing there. But in terms of thematic stuff, I do think it was an interesting choice for him to play with. I don't have any problems with it. I'm still kind of chewing on it because I did see it literally 24 hours ago. Mm-hmm. But was there anything else that you kind of wanted to touch on there? Because that's kind of a heavy one.
I think thank you for bringing that up right at the beginning, because
we gotta just do it.
Yeah. Because I think it is a movie, I was talking about with my friend who saw the movie too, and it feels like, their take that I think really clicked for me is that it is a movie a lot about women's sexuality. And I think particularly Eggers is someone who's interested in exploring women who are sexual or spiritual or exist in a way that is not compatible with the era and the time in which they are in, and have to find, and it is them coming to terms with themselves within that structure and how to accept that part of them, because I think that's what The Witch is largely about too.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I really like that read. We're just kind of reading this as a companion piece to The Witch in that sense, because, a lot of why Dracula was written was because of the anxieties of the time. This is as high Victorian as it gets. The attitudes about sex were famously repressed. So I think that makes sense, particularly centering this version of the story around a young woman who has, for most of her life, including when she was a teen, experienced things that she refers to as my shame. She says, this is my shame. This has followed me. Mm-hmm. And I do like that read as that being about sexuality as opposed to abuse. I think it can be about both, but they're both reads that I think are accurate to the movie. Yeah, man, it's a lot. This movie's a lot, Will. That I think is something. There's a lot of discourse happening about the film right now, and I don't really want to get into a lot of it because a lot of it's profoundly stupid. But I think Eggers actually tried to get in front of some potential hashtag discourse by really harping on the fact And this is mentioned kind of in passing in the original. The maiden must, willingly sacrifice herself to save the town. They mentioned that probably 3 or 4 times, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is kind of the director poking at the idea of like, look, it may not be a healthy relationship, but I feel like he's really trying to suggest that both Orlok and, himself are making clear that there is some sort of consent at play. It is more questionable when she was younger, specifically because we do not know how old she is. But that to me felt very much like him being like, all right, Tumblr, like here's that for you.
See, I think I've actually missed a lot of this discourse.
Good. Don't look for it. Don't.
Partially, I have made as one of my resolutions for 2025 to be less online.
Thank God. Please do that. I want that for you so much.
I don't need it.
No, you don't. You don't need it. But yeah, that's kind of one of the major change is that, Ellen has a past with this entity specifically, which has not been in really any Nosferatu adaptation. I think that the Gary Oldman version, Bram Stoker's Dracula by Francis Ford Coppola, was one of the first to kind of suggest that, Dracula and Mina have some sort of past life connection, or some sort of otherworldly pull to one another, and that has become commonplace in contemporary adaptation. And this kind of adds to that oeuvre.
I think I have some thoughts on that, and I think
go for it.
What I think is one of the interesting differences between Dracula and Nosferatu is they exist as like, entities in film.
Yeah.
I think so we see in that most famously in the Gary Oldman version, but also if you go back to the the one with Jack Palance from, was it like the 70s?
Yes.
And I think also like, Blackula from the 70s have that same idea of like Mina being a reincarnation of Dracula's lost love from when he was alive. And what I think is interesting is the way that this is, I guess it's similar, but it's a different thing. It is not Dracula pursuing his love. It's more about sexuality and lust more than it is about love, and it is more about Ellen and who she is and her sexuality than I think usually this thing about the like lost love thing is all these Dracula movies. I think what's interesting is that across all of these, Ellen is always the main character, and it is her sacrifice that ends up defeating the monster and sort of coming to terms with herself. But what I think is interesting is that unlike a lot of Dracula movies, we are seeing, particularly in this one, we are seeing Ellen through her own eyes, and we get to know Ellen on her own terms. I think in a lot of Dracula, particularly in the book, Mina means more as what she represents to the author, to society, and to the characters around her. She's this ideal Victorian femininity compared to Lucy, but she's also this modern woman who knows how to type and represents this modern world. And we keep being told who Mina is and why she's important. In this one, we see who Ellen actually is.
Interesting. I like that a lot. And like something that I will say was a little that I have been chewing on a bit is I have a difficult time in films where we are told what a character is like without seeing it. And there is one scene in this where Ellen is yelling at Friedrich, and she basically says, "How could you be so stupid?" And she has such disdain in her voice. And I loved that scene because that to me felt like what I was told Ellen was like. There were maybe 3 or 4 scenes before this where Anna mentions like, "Oh, you're so headstrong. You're so contrarian." And I feel like I didn't get to see that until that scene with Friedrich. And I wish I had seen that prior. Like, I wish I had a couple, that scene happened an hour before it did.
I feel like in most movies that also just is code for like, she reads a book.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, I wanted to see more of that headstrong Ellen before Thomas left, or before she was fully under Orlok's spell and essentially taken out of commission for 25 minutes of the movie.
Yes.
Like, that to me, I think would have sold it just a little bit more. And that's kind of one of the flaws to the film for me. Again, I still think it was really, really excellent. But that is a writing nitpick that I have with a lot of film. I wanted to see who she was for myself instead of being told. But I do like your points about how this film is more from Ellen's point of view than most of these adaptations are. And a lot of media has issues with the, main character syndrome, where, nobody's favorite character is Harry Potter. You know what I mean? And I think this actually did a good way of skirting around that, where it gave Ellen a good amount to work with. It was not perfect. I would have changed some things, but I think that a lot of that was interesting, specifically because it came from an adaptation. But yeah, that's a really good point, Will. So a couple other things. Let's kind of just keep going here. I loved the castle section of this film. What did you think of it?
Oh my god, it was so cool. I like the way that it gets kind of metaphysical.
Yes!
A little weird. Time doesn't feel like it moves normally there. The way that like the Count can be like right next to Hooder, and then like on the other side of the room.
Yes.
It really it shows that the castle fucking with his mind in a way that's really interesting. That honestly we've not seen in a lot of these Dracula movies.
No.
There's a lot of atmosphere, but you don't get the sense that like time just does not behave normally.
Yes, exactly. If a castle section is fucked, the movie is fucked, homie. Like,
oh yeah.
And this crushes so hard, and it's exactly what I was paying attention to, too, and I knew that you would love it, was all these cheeky little camera tricks, lighting tricks, where, we have a shot of Hooder in one room, and then we pan a little bit to the side, and he's in a different room. Shit is not working right. I want to see this motherfucker get tortured, okay? I want there to be a reason why he jumps out of a window and falls into the river, other than just getting snacked upon. I want there to be a deeply psychological element to it, and all of this direction was so fucking clever, and I'm really happy that they hammered that home. And you're right, exactly. It's metaphysical, and having Skarsgård Orlok be backlit for most of it, so you can't see his face. Clever, super fucking clever.
They really keep that reveal of his full face under wraps for a pretty long time, I don't know, for at least 40 minutes of the movie.
I was just gonna say it takes a hot minute, and there's some really hyper close-ups of his eyes, but he's either completely backlit in silhouette or just very, very dim or distant for huge swaths of the castle section. This is what got me in the movie. It's a little slow to start. I gave it a pass. It's fine. But once, Hooder is actually on his journey there, that's when I was like, oh, this is the Herzog version.
What did you think about the scene with the Romani and the sacrifice and the naked chick on the horse?
Acceptable, but not necessary.
Yeah.
I thought it was fine. I thought it was some fun flavor, but I think all we needed was the old woman warning him, as opposed to, him having this dream of seeing Orlok staked and, seeing a virgin be sacrificed. I'm like, I don't know if that adds a lot to it. I think it almost is better if he just gets a warning and goes anyway, as opposed to having this fucking harrowing experience. I will say though,
was that Orlok in the grave, or was that just I thought it was just some dude, just some other vampire.
I thought it was Orlok.
You could be totally right.
It was hard to tell because it was pretty grody, and it was shot pretty quick.
Yeah, it feels like the kind of scene where it could have been cut, and then if they did the Nosferatu, the extended edition, yeah, you could put it back in. And I mean, I like some cool gothic flavor, I'm not gonna like object to it, but it definitely didn't feel like it was necessary to give that information of what that was like, particularly because his journey up to meet the carriage is already so spooky.
Yes, and that is when I really was thinking about the Herzog version of all those beautiful wide landscape shots of these crazy mountains and just a lone man on a horse, and that was gorgeous to me. That felt very intentional in that it was referencing, Herzog's take on things.
Yeah.
I fucking loved when the carriage came out and the door opened by itself. That felt very like Germanic fairy tale. Just like fun. It was fun. It was great. But yeah, I thought that was not a super necessary scene. I did really like, though, when this town was this lively and then he came out the next morning and it was fucking desolate.
Oh, yeah.
That was fun. There was also one shot that really made me laugh, but in a good way.
Please.
Is when, it's back in, Vestberg or, fucking wherever in Germany. And Ellen's saying, like, oh, my poor Thomas, he must be so... Like, I don't even know what she's saying, but she's talking about him. And then it snap cuts to Nicholas Hoult fucking crashed out face down in front of the fireplace the first night he's been fed on, and that cracked me up. I do not believe it was intentional, but it was a very funny juxtaposition.
Oh, God, that was so good.
It was so good. Let's talk about the big casket reveal.
Okay, so
you go first.
Listen, I know the discourse I have seen around this movie is around the fact that this man is rocking an absolute like walrus mustache. This dude's got like a Wilford Brimley on him. He's like, this is a paintbrush hanging from this dude's lip.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And you know what? It was the kind of thing where I saw it and I'm like, okay, I can get with this. Because you know what? It is book accurate. This man has a mustache in the book.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. There is also, if you look, an image that's been making the rounds has been of, what these counts in these boyars from that era look like. And it is just like what his design looks like with the like kind of swoop of hair, the big bushy mustache. It is accurate to history. And is it kind of silly? Sure, but I'm not against it. I'm not against it either. Change.
I'm pro mustache in pretty much any circumstance, I won't lie.
Yeah, listen, I've been rocking a mustache for like 2.5 years now.
God damn it. I did find it funny for people posting pictures of fucking Jim Carrey from the Sonic movies, and I was like, don't do this to me.
Oh no! Oh my God, no!
Wrong.
Oh, Colleen, I just saw Sonic 3 like a week before. Like 4 days. 4 days before this, and I didn't even make the connection. Jim Carrey plays like Robotnik and Robotnik's evil grandpa Robotnik and Orlok. Unfortunately, do kind of look alike.
No, it's true. I'm so sorry. To ruin this
you
for
fucked me. Oh, no.
I fucked you up so bad. But I liked it. I did not hate the mustache. I know that it's goofy. I don't give a fuck. It's accurate. Who cares? We do, in general, let's talk a little bit about the Orlok character design. So the 22 and the 79 both have a very similar aesthetic of like bald, big ears, fangs are in the front, right?
Yep.
That's that. Big, long fingies. This keeps the fingies and kind of discards everything else. Yeah,
he's got the paleness, he's got the kind of the nose, but by and large, it is like, by and large, literally, this dude is huge.
Yeah, he's a big motherfucker. And I liked that they kind of went with the idea that, like, he's been around so long that even blood doesn't really sustain him anymore, so he's, like, fucking rotting.
Yeah, it's really gross.
It was gross, but it was so clever. Like, I love when you see the back of his head and you see his skull. Like, that's from laying down so much. Like, that's clever, and that's a way to make this, really push the grotesque part of this. Mm-hmm. Because this movie is all about, like, repulsive horny, not straight horny. You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%.
So I liked the character design. He's got like really weird thin legs, and he looks almost burnt, like kind of giving the ghoul in the Fallout show. And then, of course, there is, when he stands up, just a blatantly erect fake penis.
Yep.
Which, fun fact, Nicholas Hoult kept that prosthetic. Which, like, mad respect, dude. I would.
Oh
want
my
Bill
god!
Skarsgård's fake
Nicholas
wiener.
Hoult, you're a real one.
He's a real one for that.
Oh man, they really listen. I love that. You know what? I love that like coffin popcorn bucket they got. I did a review on our page, but they missed an opportunity to do the craziest popcorn bucket of all time.
To put the dong in there. Holy fuck. Dude, man. This movie was good. I also liked that they costumed him in kind of like very like Eastern European ancient looking stuff, like really big furs.
Yeah, okay. Do you know? All right, I know you know this. Like Hellboy, Wake the Devil, like the second. It is very similar to like Girescu, the like vampire in that, with the same jacket, the same kind of mustache.
Which I love. I love Hellboy. Yeah. Let's go. But yeah, the castle section was great. You know, then we kind of get to other parts of the movie where we are dealing with Ellen being under the spell of Orlok via her dreams. So she's having, you know, sleepwalking, violent night terrors. And something that I really liked, this is very minor, but I thought was fun, is that both, you know, Sievers and I'm just going to say Van Helsing because I can't remember his whole name, is like period accurate dumb fuck medical stuff, being like, she's got too much blood, we must put leashes upon her.
Oh yeah,
and like that was really funny to me for some reason, but it works. And you know, there's a couple scenes of, you know, them being like, she has to sleep in a corset, and just like silly shit that when you think about it now is like so fucking stupid, but at the time, that was what the medical professionals were saying. So that's how they would treat somebody who was presenting these symptoms. I thought that was fun. Man, okay. And then we kind of, you know, Hutter makes his way back, which he does in, you know, most adaptations. He is profoundly changed. I liked that they focused a little more on, you know, his trauma, where that he has also been touched by Orlok. He is also not sleeping well. And there is a sexual element to that as well. I did think it was kind of cool how they rarely had Orlok actually bite or feed at the neck, but they went for the chest instead.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of cheeky, and made the whole thing feel both more monstrous and more sexual. Like he's going for the heart, like, you know, an animal would. And then, you know, the last act of the film is where you get this kind of fervor around the plague has hit. You know, Friedrich's family has been killed by Orlok. You know, there's one night left for Ellen to sacrifice herself, else Thomas die. She tells this to Van Helsing, and he kind of leads them on a chase that he knows is futile, but will allow her the space to do this. And, you know, eventually she sacrifices herself. I really enjoyed... Did you see Midnight Mass, the Mike Flanagan show?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, you should watch it. It's really good. Flanagan has his faults, but I think it's his best work. But there's a moment where there's a vampire-like character in this, and it is almost exactly mirrored where the sun is coming up, but it's feeding on a woman. And it kind of looks to see that the sun is coming up, and she pulls it back in as a means to distract it from the sunrise. And that is mirrored almost exactly here. And, you know, that's what happens in the original as well. And I just, it's a moment that really gets me. I really like it. And then we have that honestly gorgeous last shot.
Oh, yeah.
Which is an overhead shot of the bed of, you know, Ellen, who's been bled out, and Orlok on top of her, and Van Helsing has surrounded them with flowers. It's stunning.
It is a beautiful shot. I think it is, I mean, it's interesting that it has Orlok remain in frame instead of, like, you know, bursting into flame or, like, fading away like he does in the original.
I thought that was cool also. And I thought this was gorgeously shot.
Oh yeah.
Truly stunning cinematography. Big wide shots of the landscapes. I really liked when the town was in the midst of this plague. These kind of like sweeping overhead shots where you can kind of see the chaos that's happening, but also that it's empty, and then that's
Yeah.
such a change from earlier. Was there anything that stood out to you?
I mean, I love that part. It feels like that is the like that it feels the most like it's like the bloodborne of it all when it is just
Yes.
like a city like gothic city in ruin and there's just like carts overturned and little fires and it just feels like you're wandering through Yarnum. It is but like there's that shot that, was so good that they put in the trailers of uh Orlok reaching out and the shadow of his hand just sort of
Ugh.
encompasses the whole town. And it's just a slow tracking shot of a shadow swooping over these rooftops. And it's so gorgeous and so chilling.
And the work with the shadow in general had there were so many shadows to the original in this, particularly with the shadow with Skarsgård's hands, big tracking shots up the stairs like we get in the original. In his first appearance, because he is still in Transylvania, his initial meeting with Ellen when she summons him as a younger woman, you only see him in shadow on the curtains. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like his shadow is what has had this relationship with her as opposed to himself. There's a scene with Hooder where Orlok is coming at him from one direction with these wolves, but the shadow comes at him from behind and urges him to open the door. Just really clever stuff. We got a couple of archway shots, which was fun. We got the beach with the graves on it,
Oh, yeah.
which is a must at this point because that's such an iconic image. There's one shot right before the final image of the film. That's Defoe holding Ellen's cat and looking out into the sunlight, but you can see his face in a mirror that's off to the side. Um, just beautifully done. And that is the sign to me of like a director who is really interested in like actually directing.
Do you know what? This might sound out of pocket. Do you know what the production design reminded me of?
No, what?
Muppet Christmas Carol.
No, literally, Will. What the fuck? I am absolutely there with you. The yes,
Just
yes,
the way the buildings are designed, and they're both like early Victorian stories, but the way that the design of the buildings and the costuming and the swooping like overhead shots over the
yes.
rooftops is
That's Gonzo
is
flying, dude.
yes.
Fuck, man. I was thinking Christmas Carol, particularly one of the first shots of Hutter when he's like on his way to the real estate office.
Oh yeah.
That was when I was like, this looks like Muppet Christmas Carol. Fuck, man. I gotta watch Muppet Christmas Carol again.
I just watched it like right before Christmas. It's fresh in my mind.
Oh, man, this was stunning. Okay,
It
okay,
just
okay.
that's the thing. It's like it's so exciting to get a big budget movie that looks this good.
And like something that I really liked about the tone of the overall film, particularly in the performances, and this will kind of lead us into that section, is again, they did not go subtle with this. This is high melodrama.
Oh yeah.
If that's not your thing, just like be warned. And I think this film is overall reviewing well, but I do think it's divisive because the tone is high melodrama. This is Shakespearean tragedy, and it is delivered as such, and it is shot as such. But again, I think that was kind of a good choice for like the Christmas blockbuster, you know?
Yeah. No, I think so. I think this is a movie that is big emotions. I think the reviews I've seen that have been negative are, about focus on the performances, about sort of how loud it's played and how violently it's played.
Yeah, it's violent.
And I think, on some level, we can get into it, but I think it is for the story it's telling. I think that was a good choice.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Well, that'll kind of lead us into some specific performances, because this is something that we like to do on the show, is kind of go through like main cast member by main cast member. Let's look at Simon McBurney as Ernok, who is the equivalent of Renfield, but specifically in Nosferatu is actually Hooter's employer, which is a fun twist. It leans really into the occult aspect of this. What did you think of his work?
I really like Simon McBurney's performance in this. It is so creepy and gross. And there's something very sad about it at the same time.
Oh, yeah, no, that's true. That's true. It is pretty Renfield in general is just like kind of a downer.
Yeah. But there's something about, I think in this because I don't think we've ever seen a lot that are close to how, we don't get a ton of performances that are close to how Renfield is in the book, where he's, for the most part, aside from his outbursts, pretty quiet and pretty soft-spoken or eloquent. But this also isn't the, like, foaming at the mouth, like, version of this character either. There's something truly off about this guy, but he also is in sort of, there's something debased, but he's also more in control, which is kind of horrifying, because he's, actively in the occult and is actively, knowingly sending Hutter to his doom.
Yeah, and like that makes it much more insidious instead of like, this is the crazy guy who Dracula has chosen to speak through.
Yeah.
And yeah, this reminded me a lot of the I'm totally blanking on this guy's name, but he plays Orlok in the Herzog version. Klaus Kinski. Reminded me of that performance that Klaus Kinski did in a different version where he was Renfield.
Oh, in Count Dracula.
Yes.
The 70s one, yeah.
Yes. Where it is over the top, but there is a, as you mentioned, a palpable sadness to it. I thought it was very fun that they had him bite a head off a pigeon. That was a fun little gore moment. Okay, moving on. Next is Emma Corrin as Anna. So, my issue with Anna is that she did not have a lot to do. Lucy is a main character in Dracula, but appears very little in the original Nosferatu, if I'm correct. Maybe not at all.
Yeah. Anna and Frederick are there because, Ellen stays with them in the original movie, but they are barely characters.
Yeah. And, I thought Emma Corrin's very talented. They were in A Murder at the End of the World. They're like young, like younger than we are. But, did a good job, but I would have liked a little more writing-wise with Anna, but, not a lot. Not a lot you can do there.
No, again, I think as we keep finding across all of these adaptations, this Lucy character is just consistently the most one of the more difficult characters on screen.
Yeah.
It's so often kind of a thankless role because you either...
It is.
It's interesting because it's in a different way where, like, normally Lucy is kind of just played as being, like, kind of the slut. And it's the opposite in this one, where she is sort of the more prim woman who fits more into the time and place of early Victorian society. She's a mother. She's, a wife and mother. But that still does not give her a lot of space. And I feel like towards the end, and she starts to, realize she's succumbing to this illness and understands what's going on, you start to see her kind of unravel a little bit more. And I feel like I would have liked to have seen her more in that space of realizing the truth of things and sort of realizing, like, oh God,
yes.
This is what's happening. Ellen has been, and as she says, like, Ellen has been right this whole time.
And, like, she had one of my favorite lines in the film, which is, like, I love her and she is blameless in her malady. And, like, that is what I would have liked to see a little bit more of. Like, we had one scene of them kind of together being intimate. But yeah, as you said, it's a thankless role. But you know, they did a good job with it. Obviously, they're like an extremely adequate actor.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
okay, next we've got Ralph Ineson as Severs, who is the equivalent of Seward. I like Ralph Ineson. I think he does a good job. As you said, this motherfucker looks like he should be in an illuminated manuscript.
Yeah, he's pretty good in this. I think particularly you need him to be a sort of like good cop, bad cop to Defoe as Von Franz being, kind of kooky and off the wall. You need someone who's like, "Sir, we are men of science."
Yeah, no, exactly.
You need someone who is going to try his due diligence with the medical knowledge that he has and still fail and have to figure out within himself what to do with that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. Did what he could. Seward's also kind of a thankless role in adaptation. He's either cut or compressed. I just like hearing this guy talk.
Oh yeah, I mean his guy's voice it's sonorous. I think is the word.
Sonorous, dude. Okay, then we've got Aaron Taylor Johnson as Friedrich Harding. What did you think of his performance and this character in general?
Look, there's nothing against Aaron Taylor Johnson as an actor, but he felt the most like this is a modern man playing dress up in 19th century garb. It was like the least sort of, it had the least verisimilitude. It felt sort of dinner theater Victorian industrialist.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. Again, like, it's not really his fault, but I think it was a miscast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who I would have liked to see in that role, and I'll probably think of somebody in 2 hours and text it to you.
You will. I feel like, here's my take. I think they should have cast someone older. I think you could keep Emma Corrin in this role at the same age. I think casting someone who's older and has a little more gravitas, I think maybe would have worked better. I think especially as establishing him as this businessman is sort of this. I know the idea is supposed to be that like he and Hutter were like, I guess, students together, but I think there's something in him being like more established and being like, my boy, this is how you could be. This is what the world as it should be for you and for your wife. I think would have made also the tragedy that he faces much more so, as again the life that he thought he knew and thought was so solid just crumbles under him for reasons that he
doesn't understand and is not willing to understand.
Yeah.
Even like a Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah. Oh, honestly, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Like some British fuck. I don't know. But we should briefly touch on capital T, the scene.
Yes.
So after Anna and his 2 children are killed by Orlok, and it's also kind of clear that he is succumbing to the plague, as evidenced by some of the like sores on his face, which I did think was interesting. Friedrich goes to the mausoleum, and in a fit of grief, it is not directly depicted on scene, but it is certainly implied that he commits necrophilia. Necessary? I don't know. I don't think so. Gratuitous, perhaps.
Call me old-fashioned, but I don't really think we needed that scene.
I don't think we needed it. Like, I think the first half of the scene was fine, and like, even if he had fucking set the whole thing on fire instead of Von Franz and co. setting it on fire, like, I think that would have been a very spectacular suicide for him. And like, opening the casket, sure. Deep grief. That's like a huge thing to do to somebody who has been fucking entombed. Just open the casket.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't need that second shot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was the one where I could, like, I didn't even talk to my friends, but like, just in the row, we were like, ah. You could just feel the energy just sort of change for a second.
Yeah, everybody being like, nah, man. Yep. Nope, we're doing it.
Yeah, that really felt the most like shock value out
Yes,
of anything
agree.
in this movie.
And again, this is a 2 hour and 10 minute film. That's 5 minutes. Just cut it. Who fucking cares?
Yeah.
Okay, Willem Dafoe as Von Franz. He can do no wrong. He is my
Yes.
king.
Yeah, this dude rocks in this movie. He is great. He
Unhinged.
does, yeah, unhinged, but he's like, again, a kind of sweet. Like, there's something like he's one of the few people who like treat, aside from Hutter, who like treats Ellen with like dignity or warmth. Like out of any of the men in this movie, like he gets to the house and sees that she's been like drugged and that she's like wearing this corset and is tied down to the bed. He's like, "What are you doing? Untie this woman. Take that corset off. Stop giving her these drugs. What is wrong with you?"
Yep, yep. It was very sweet. And yeah, great combination of like paternal and then in parentheses positive, and total Shakespearean scenery chewing.
Oh yeah,
Like him lighting,
the silliest pipe on the face
so
of the earth.
silly. Like cackling madly while 2,000 rats run around him. That's
That thing looks
all
like
I've
a
ever wanted.
tiny saxophone that he's holding onto.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah, that scene of like just of igniting the tomb and just like letting it all loose. It was so
Yeah.
good.
It's delicious.
He
Peak
has
madness.
one of my what I think is my favorite line in the movie, and I think the one that kind of made a lot of it click for me is when he before they initiate their plan, he offers to walk Ellen back to the door of her house, and they have this conversation where like he's like, "I know what you got to do. I know you're gonna do it. You know what's going on. I'm gonna keep these dudes distracted." And he tells her that like in a previous age she would have made a great high priestess or something.
Oh, good
And
stuff.
I think it's really good stuff, and it's like he understands her better than almost anyone else around her.
Yeah, because
And
he's willing to accept her at face value.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's like grief in watching her go, but he also understands, and it's just he does it really well for a performance that is played very big.
He also has an all-time banger line, which is something along the lines of, "In order to defeat the darkness, you must first venture to understand it."
Oh,
And
that
that's what
rocks.
all of them are unwilling to do, is that like there is nothing here that we don't understand. Like we are men of science, and this is hysteria, too much blood, XYZ. And he's like, you won't even consider that it's something outside your realm, and that is why you're failing. That's the good shit right there. That was the good stuff. All right, Nicholas Hoult as Thomas Hutter cast a standout for me. I won't lie. I thought he was fucking phenomenal. I enjoyed watching him. I loved watching him be psychologically and borderline sexually tortured in that castle. He is my little scream queen. This man should be sweaty and writhing at all times.
He is great. I think it's like, I mean, the thing is, it occurred to me later, it's wild that this is the like second Dracula movie he's been in like 2 years, but he disappears into this role. I think he is great because it doesn't feel like the same guy who's playing Renfield in the like wacky like Deadpool humor like horror comedy. He has got the range, as they say. I think
He has the range, darling.
and he does what I think a lot of Harkers or Hutters don't do necessarily, in that he allows himself to be truly vulnerable.
Yes. That I think is why we have so many wet fucking blankets as Harker.
Yeah, his fear, the way he's like before anything, even as he's just like trying to like sign the contract, and he's like weeping, and his like hand is shaking, and like the true fear, the like the incomprehensible fear that he's emoting is really good.
Yeah.
He brings this vulnerability, and it's not like, it's not like a bullshit like explaining what his feelings are, but like, pat term vulnerability, but like he has to actually be like debase himself, kind of
Yeah.
like brought down to like his like primal emotions in a way that I don't think a lot of other actors who've been in that role are willing or were capable of doing.
No, I'm completely with you there. And I felt like he was exactly equal parts endearing, ambitious, in that like he really wants this job. He wants to provide because that is what he's been told to do, and like
Mm-hmm.
pathetic. You know what I mean? And that made him really great to watch. But you're right about the vulnerability, and that's where I think a lot of actors who have taken on this role have failed previously. Okay, Bill Skarsgård as Count Orlok. As many in this role, there is not a lot for him to do. However, that didn't seem like a human. That I did not feel like I was watching a person, and I'm sure that a lot of that is due to the heavy prosthetics, but like what was shocking to me was the voice, dude.
Oh my god.
What the fuck? I don't know how he did that. Like, I thought that that had some sort of filter on it or something, but it doesn't. That is just him.
That is crazy.
That is whack, right? Like this deep, low, really heavy accented, plotting speech.
This man is rolling those R's like I've never heard an R rolled in my life.
It was like truly bizarre to witness because I forgot it was him. Like, this could have been completely CGI'd and I would have been none the wiser. Very impressive. Again, not a lot for him to do. But you know, did you think that he had good chemistry with Lily Rose Depp?
I think he kind of exists. So here's the thing: is I think he exists in a different way on screen than any previous Orlok. This is like worlds away from Klaus Kinski playing this like kind of vulnerable, almost skittish character that is almost like Kinski plays a character that has been alive so long and has seen so many centuries and has been just alone in a castle for centuries on end and has almost forgotten how to be a human.
Yeah.
And you don't really get that with this version of Orlok. He is commanding, like the way that he like commands that like Hutter call him my liege, and he has like a plan, and he has a plan, and he has like a will to power that you don't see in a lot of other versions of Orlok. And yeah, I think a lot of times he still doesn't have a lot to do because I think wisely this version they sort of keep in the shadows for the most part.
Yeah.
He's exerting his will over people. He is not like in the full. He's not like full in the frame for the most part, and I think it works even if it is. Yeah, it feels like maybe he doesn't actually have that much screen time in this very long movie.
Yeah, no. But I agree with you there, whether it's a power to this particular performance that is absent from both the Kinski and the Shrek, which are a little more pathetic actually. But yeah, good stuff. Okay, and then lastly, and I think that this is going to be the most divisive performance, and that's what I'm also seeing critically in terms of like viewer reviews, is Lily Rose Depp as Ellen Hutter. What did you think?
You know what? I liked her in this role. I have never really seen Lily Rose Depp in any other movies. To be honest, I think she does a pretty good job. I like the physicality of this role. Like, she is doing some truly, like, grotesque, back-bending, physical acting that is really unsettling to watch.
Yeah, I think her physicality is crazy, and I think it's extremely impressive. No matter what, I think that she has done a very good job with what was written for her. I am not positive that I liked it, but I may like it if I revisit it, but I do not think that it was bad. But it's again, this is going to be the thing that divides people, is that this is high fucking melodrama. And, you know, again, like the scenes of her where you said, like, the backbends, crazy, crazy. So I guess we should talk about Nobody Can Love Me Like He Can.
Yeah.
We should talk about that.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. So this is, like, the scene that is going to get a lot of attention in this film, where it is the climax of her character arc with Hutter, where they have both been haunted by Orlok. And she is explaining her past with this entity. She's explaining what she has to do. And in the midst of this, would you say that she is being possessed, or that this is just some sort of physical reaction? This read as possession to me, but I don't really know if it is in the text.
I read it as possession.
Yeah, I did too. But, like, there's a lot of clips on this social media where she starts convulsing, only the whites of her eyes showing, straight up drooling, tearing her chest like a werewolf on the cover of a bodice ripper. And again, extremely impressive. If you like it or not is going to depend completely on whether or not you're bought into the tone of the film. That's kind of where I'm at. I think that she committed to it completely. I have just not marinated on it enough to decide if I liked it.
Yeah. That is fair. I feel like I maybe didn't think about it that hard. It's just like, I think she does a good job with this role as it's written.
That's valid. That's completely valid. And I think that that's, like, the general opinion is that, like, damn, she went hard.
Yeah. There's not, like, I can't say she's not giving it her all.
No, me neither. Me neither. And she's 25. Like, that's nuts.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing. Is, like, I mean, I guess I don't want to do, like, alternative casting. He's like, but what would it? I mean, if we had Anya Taylor-Joy in this role, you know, would that have been better? I can't say. I think
I can't either.
Anya is also someone who's, particularly working with Eggers, just willing to kind of go for it.
Yeah. But this was, like, crazy. Like, I could feel that the theater people were, like, jaws open, particularly in No One Can Love Me Like He Can. And, like, something that did break my heart, which I give her a lot of credit for, is after, you know, whatever spirit is within her has left, she is crawling towards Hutter and saying, "I'll be good." Oh, that was crushing.
Yeah.
Fuck, man. And then, you know, again, if you want to read this as allegorical of abuse, her response, you know, of kind of like hypersexuality and goading Hutter into having sex with her by way of playing on this jealousy that he had, that's interesting. You know what I mean? But yeah, that it's like all Eggers stuff. There's just like a palpable atmosphere of insanity over the whole thing. And I really enjoyed it. Is there anything else that you kind of want to touch on while we're here? There's so much, but, like, fuck, man.
There's a lot.
There's
so much in it. I think what I like in this, again, is sort of the idea of, like, what does Nosferatu mean as in film versus what does Dracula mean? And I think what I've found is that Nosferatu exists as sort of this very separate kind of stream. I think the fact that a lot of them all take place in the early Victorian era versus the late Victorian era changes things a bit, because when it's set in the 1890s, it becomes about this dawning of a new era, and the world of technology, of automatic pistols and trains, and the dawn of cinema against this ancient evil. And I think what is interesting is this is because it is, you know, there's a dawning of the modern world in some ways, but it is much closer to the shadows. And I feel like Nosferatu is much more about those shadows and about the natural world. I think Orlok is a much more elemental figure than Dracula is usually allowed to be, or is, you know, is depicted as being on screen, even in the book. I think the fact that we don't really, you know, we can intimate where Orla came from, but it's never explicitly spelled out in sort of the same way that Dracula is. Someone mentions that he was like in his life he was like a black sorcerer who like did deals with the devil to come back. And that's about as much as we get in any of the Nosferatu movies, but there's very little beyond that. He doesn't have any of his like speeches about like fighting the Turks that Dracula has. He doesn't do a lot of soliloquizing. There's more of this elemental evil that he may have been human once, but what he is as this sort of elemental undead force is sort of more important.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That's a great read. And I think that, in this show, we're obviously looking at Dracula adaptation, but like we have to, be clear that this is not an adaptation of Dracula. It's an adaptation of the 20s film.
Yeah.
And I think in doing that, I think it is successful. My wife did ask me, how would I rank the three of them, this one, the Herzog, and the original. And I was like, I actually can't answer that because they're so profoundly different. I don't know if there's a great way for me to approach those because they all fulfill a completely different need cinematically.
Yeah. I think I am still very partial to Herzog's version, the slow burn, sort of poetic version of that. But I also like that this is not that movie, that it is exploring new things within Nosferatu while still being recognizably a new version of Nosferatu.
Yeah, agreed. Costuming, stunning, gorgeous. Set design, stunning, gorgeous. I do think at the top in particular, like, I know they used a lot of like vintage filtering for this. Sometimes it is hard for me to see. And I don't mean in the scenes with Orlok, I mean just like in general.
No, it's literally a very dark film.
My God. I can't see shit, boss. But that's a fucking nitpick.
Yeah, if you watch this at home, maybe bump the brightness up on your screens a little bit.
You're gonna have to. Yeah, man, I don't know if I have a lot more off the top of my head. I feel like I've hit on all the things that I wanted to hit on. But I think that this is going to be one that we both revisit.
Oh, yeah. This is one that I was hoping I'd get a chance to see again before we record this episode. I think it's going to be a movie that is going to reward multiple viewings. I think it's exciting me. Listen, we started this podcast like just a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, basically on a whim. Like, it has worked out that there has been some like Dracula movies and Renfield and Voyage of Last Voyage of Demeter. They were fine.
They're fine.
Not people weren't talking about this. This is a cultural phenomenon, and it is cool that like this thing that we kind of just decided we'd start doing now feels like it's in the cultural zeitgeist.
Completely agreed with you there. It's very fun. And it makes me happy that like a lot of people have asked for my opinion on this movie.
Yeah, thank you to all of you who have been sending me your Nosferatu memes and opinions and asking, my thoughts on it in the last couple days. I love you all. Truly,
you were gorgeous people. But yeah, just like a note, now that I have less, I don't have two jobs anymore. I'm hoping to do this podcast a little more often. We'll probably do some sort of mailbag in the near future, especially if we get people in because they are interested in this current film. But we traditionally end an episode with a tweet. But as opposed to tweet, I have a Letterboxd review for you today.
Oh my God.
This is by Kevin T. Porter on Letterboxd. Gave this film 4 stars and a heart. And his review is Nosferatu. And that is it.
Thank you all so much for joining us here.
Thank you so much, everybody. Spit on that thing. Bye.
Bye.